See what happens. All right.
Yeah, it says the video is being live streamed. So you
Okay.
good.
All right. So hopefully that worked. It's just I'm used to two screens and I'm only on my laptop, so trying to do double duty here is a little
No,
bit of a
no
challenge.
worries, Kim. You're good.
Okay. All right. So I was going to share a screen because I wanted to share our home screen. So I wanted to show you where you could go to find a lot of information. You can send family and friends if they're asking questions. And it's hard to remember it all sometimes. So we've just gotten our website updated with some information. So let's see if I can actually manage to share this. Yes, I can. All right. And hopefully you can see that. Can everybody see our website?
Yeah, I can
Okay,
see
good.
it.
Perfect. All right, so up at the top here on the left-hand side, you can see Project Civica passed the Save America Act, signed the petition. So we had a petition going for the SAVE Act back in August and September, and we delivered all those petition signatures to the Senate, because if you remember back then we had the SAVE Act and that was for only citizens vote. That was basically what the bill was about. Just a very simple thing, only citizens vote. We delivered those signatures that everybody, and maybe some of you helped gather them. We delivered those signatures back in September and to Schumer's office and Gillibrand's office in DC. Six of us, five, six, I can't remember now, went down and did that. And so unfortunately, it's been stuck in the Senate. And at that time, the SAVE Act was stuck in Mitch McConnell's committee. And he basically had it buried there because, from what I understand, he doesn't support the SAVE Act. So he just let it sit there and languish. So back in January, there was an effort to revive the SAVE Act after President Trump spoke to the Republican, I guess it would be the Republican caucus, but all of the Republicans in Congress. And he basically revived this idea again, which we've all been fighting for, is only citizens vote. And at that time, there was a lot of talk about combining a bunch of things together. So the SAVE Act then got added to, or more added to it, and it became the Save America Act. Okay. And so you will see out there a lot of people referring to the SAVE Act. And while that's generally correct, right, it's actually referring to a totally different bill. So if we're correct when we're talking to people, I think that's really smart. So right now, the bill that we're trying to get passed is called the Save America Act. And we are collecting signatures again, and we will deliver those signatures to Schumer and Gillibrand. I know they don't support the Save America Act, but I do not believe that we should ignore our senators just because we don't think they agree. We should let them know that there are constituents that support it and that there is a political toll, a cost for their position. So we will deliver it to them again. So if you click on sign the petition now, that will get you to our page. Only citizens vote, join the petition drive for the Save America Act. Okay. So this is more than just, on this page, there's more than just the information about this, the petition. It actually has quite a bit of information on it. Okay. So there's two key legislative efforts currently under consideration. The Save America Act, and SAVE stands for Safeguard American Voter Eligibility. So Save America Act. Basically, both all these bills, Mega Make Elections Great Again, is still in committee and is a more robust bill, but it hasn't been brought to the floor yet, if you will. It's still in committee. But basically, all of this refers to federal elections. Okay, so that's one of the key things you've got to keep in your head, is that there is that differentiation between elections that are federal and elections that are local or state, right? And you'll hear that out in, publicly with people saying, well, The states are supposed to be the ones that, take care of elections. But the Constitution does give Congress the ability to adjust federal legislation or pass legislation, I should say, for federal elections. And they have in the past. Okay. So this is not anything new. The Congress has passed numerous bills regulating federal elections. Two of them we know very well in the election integrity field, the Help America Vote Act. We know about Motor Voter, the National Voter Registration Act. And then there's even the, I'm blanking on the name of it. The, I can't even think of the Civil Rights Act, I think it is.
Act.
NIVRA.
I already said never, National Voter Registration Act. The one before that was more the Civil Rights Act.
National Civil Rights Act.
National Civil Rights Act. Yeah,
No,
a lot of it.
the Voting Rights Act, VRA.
VRA, right, Voting Rights Act. So basically, Congress has done this several times before. So one of the arguments out there is Congress isn't supposed to be allowed to do this. Totally false, fake news, bad information. They've done this a number of times. They can do this again. Okay, so basically, if you go to this website page, you will find links actually to the actual bill, right? So if you go to, and hopefully you guys can still see this, the Save America Act, you will see HR 7296, and that's the actual language for that bill. So you can read it yourself. And I suggest everybody do it. It's not that awful to read, to be honest with you. And it's a good thing for us citizens to get used to reading legislation and not rely on news and people who may not totally be honest with us to interpret it for us. We should actually go to the original sources and read it ourselves and at least ask questions. So basically the Save America Act, and I'm going to scroll down here again to get to it. I'm going to go through the key provisions of it so you all understand it, okay? So the key provisions of the Save America Act is that the legislation requires documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections, including in-person registration and updates affecting eligibility. Okay, so one of the things I've seen out on social media a lot from Democrats is you're going to have to bring your birth certificate, you're going to have to bring, proof of citizenship when you vote. And that's incorrect. It's only when you're registering to vote that will be an issue. Okay, so that's they're trying to scare people in a way, making it sound more difficult than it is. It requires photo identification to cast a ballot in federal elections and establishes uniform federal standards governing voter eligibility and voting procedures. Okay, so this is where you're going to have to bring photo ID to cast a ballot. Okay, and most of us already have photo ID. We've got driver's licenses, we've got that already. There may be some people who don't have photo ID at this point in time, and it doesn't seem to be that many to me, but if they don't, there is in this bill ways for people to get photo identification. There's also ways for people to, if they, for whatever reason, don't have the documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, there's ways for them to get help through the Board of Elections. It's part of the bill. You can, each state will kind of decide on how they're going to do this, but there is a provision in the bill that if you can't afford it, that they will, give it to you for free or assist you. So all of this is included in the bill. So some of the arguments on the left saying that, people can't afford it, that kind of a thing, isn't true. If you have those issues, there are provisions in the bill to help with that. Another thing that the Save America Act does, it amends the National Voter Registration Act to establish uniform federal standards for verifying citizenship status in the federal voter registration process. Okay, so one of the problems has been that the NVRA only has limited things that, that Board of Elections are allowed to do. And so it has to be amended. It has to be adjusted and changed. It requires states to obtain and review documentary evidence of citizenship, such as a passport, birth certificate, or other qualifying documentation before registering an applicant for federal elections. Kind of already talked about that already. It directs states to establish procedures to remove or prevent registration of non-citizens from voter rolls for federal elections consistent with federal standards. So there, it tells states to go ahead and do this. Basically, this has to do with the SAVE system. It gets confusing because SAVE system has to do with eligibility, and it allows states to provide their voter rolls to the SAVE system for verification. If you end up getting tagged, for example, maybe, mistakenly, it does have a due process, it does have a process that if you get, you can provide the documentation if you've got tagged. So they've got to notify people. They're not just removing people willy-nilly. If you get tagged saying that, hey, you're not a citizen, they have to send out notification to you, give you opportunity to prove you're a citizen. So there is what I would call due process for people, who may have been tagged incorrectly. There were some initial issues, I guess, with the system where people would run it through, and there may have been some false positives. From what I understand, they're working on a lot of these issues and working through connecting into several different government databases that should help with that. And the one issue with this is that involves giving the last four of your social. And when you register to vote, you can also give your license or as well like verification of where you live. And so one of the weaknesses of the bill is that it doesn't necessarily apply to the entire voter rolls. So we'll see if there's any kind of adjustments to it on that. Another thing that the Save America Act does is it strengthens verification procedures for voter registration records through documentation review and record maintenance safeguards. Okay, so it adds more robustness to the process. It provides mechanisms for applicants to cure or appeal citizenship verification issues. I already talked about that due process, and requires states to notify individuals of deficiencies. And it does maintain the state responsibility for administrating elections while imposing federal requirements governing registration for federal offices. So a lot of this is still maintained and done by the state, okay? So that's basically the key provisions of the Save America Act. Okay, so it passed the House of Representatives. I think most people know that at this point in time. It passed the House of Representatives, and now we're waiting on Thune, who is the in charge of the Senate, for him to do something with this bill. And one of the interesting things that people don't realize is the House was very clever about this whole process. They didn't just send the bill over as a bill. They actually took a piece of legislation that had already passed the Senate and now is back in the House, because there's that process. If the House passes a bill and the Senate passes a bill and they don't do the same thing and they're not saying the same things, they've got to negotiate. So the House of Representatives took a bill that the Senate had already passed, gutted that bill, and then put in the Save America legislation into it, okay? And then sent it back to the Senate. And the key thing about that is, and I want to make sure I get the the language proper here. What they did is sent the bill as what they call a privileged message. Okay, and most people are missing this whole point out in social media and even in the regular media. They're all saying about how, okay, we need 60 votes to, 60 senators to do anything with it. That is not true. The way they did this, by sending this through as a privileged message, it bypasses that initial filibuster hurdle. Okay, so initially, in order for anything to get onto, a vote, you need 60 senators who say they're gonna, agree to this bill. But the way the House did this, they don't. All they require is 51 votes for the motion to proceed. So all Thune has to do, Senator Thune, is all he has to do is make a motion to bring this to the floor, and then it requires 51 votes for it to proceed. Okay, so that's one of the major hurdles that is already taken care of, and that was because the House, like I said, embedded it in another piece of legislation and sent it back as a privileged message. This is where this whole idea of the talking filibuster comes in. Okay, now you've heard this. The traditional way, the way the Senate was originally established, was a talking filibuster. And I mean, I even remember in my history classes, as we were studying American history, you'd hear about the great debates and the great speeches that were done in the Senate. And in recent years, they got rid of that, so they don't have to do this anymore. And what we're basically asking the Senate to do is turn, back to a traditional debate where everybody's got to get on the floor and they've got to speak their mind, and what we want is a vote. So on this webpage, we do have some information about that. We did talk about Senate procedure and the filibuster. For legislation to become a law, obviously it has to pass both the House of Representatives and the Senate. In the Senate, the filibuster is a procedural rule that allows extended debate on legislation. To move forward to a final vote, the Senate must invoke cloture, which is typically 60 votes. Okay, we just talked about how that first hurdle, the House was able to help out by burying this bill, but it's that is something to understand what that means when people are talking about a filibuster and cloture. It's a lot of us, it's been a long time since we studied civics in high school, right? So basically, the talking filibuster versus the modern or zombie filibuster. What happened is basically the Senate got lazy. They didn't want to get out there and talk. And so they started some idea where, well, if we don't have 60 votes, we're not, it just doesn't even make it. It doesn't even go forward. So they basically can bury a bill using the zombie filibuster by delaying it or obstructing it procedurally. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. Senators threaten a filibuster, but they don't actually need to hold the floor with any kind of continuous debate. And then you still have to read that cloture threshold to proceed. But under a talking filibuster, senators are required to speak publicly and continuously. The good thing about this is the debate is visible to the public, right? And with a good 80% of the population, including Democrats, in support of voter ID and only citizenship voting, it is good for the public to see what's happening and where their legislators stand on this subject. These disagreements occur in an open session. The key here is the Republicans have to stand together. They've got to cooperate together. And I'm not going to get into a lot of the nitty gritty. I was on a meeting that they talked about exactly how a lot of this would happen. But for example, if the Democrats bring up an amendment to the bill, the Republicans have to shut that down really quickly right away and vote against it. So the Republicans have to stay together as a team, if you will, as a group, and just really focus on not allowing any changes to the bill. And from what I understand, also when the senators, if they bring forward this talking filibuster, which is a traditional debate, basically each of the senators get twice to talk. And so, the argument against it is it's going to take forever. But I don't think so. I mean, a lot of the senators are older. I don't see them holding the floor for hours and hours and hours on time. But that is some of the historical precedence is just that, how long the Senate would filibuster, would talk. And that is part of the tradition of the institution that we are basically asking them to go back to. So
Didn't Cory Booker filibuster not too long ago?
he tried to, yes, there was a instance where he did. Yes, 100%. I forget what that legislation was about, but yeah, he did get up there and talk. So that did happen more recently. But in order for all of the senators on, say, the Democrat side, and they could try to stop the bill by each of them taking a turn, but it would require them to be there and be present as this goes forward. So I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions at this point in time? Anything you didn't understand? Anything you want to bring forward? Anybody have any other comments? Maybe you know more than me about a topic.
So,
I have a
Kim, if I may, Kim,
Go ahead, Steve. Jump in. Yep, absolutely.
Senator Lee put out a tweet this morning. There's Republicans in the caucus in the Senate that are having difficulties now, all of a sudden, saying that due to they don't agree with the procedural situation, like you mentioned about how the House did it. So now there are, he didn't give a number, he didn't give any names. He just says that so they don't know if they can get to the 51 votes or the 50 and then advance. That was a small, probably like 11 o'clock today.
I thought I heard it. There were 8 senators now that are saying they do not support the procedural change.
Right? The procedural component of it.
So we need to know who they are, and so
I know, and they didn't list them because that was the first thing I looked for, who they are, and I can't find any place that it's listed who these senators are, so they can get hammered.
Rhinos.
So that's basically why I wanted to explain all of this, because that's what's going to come up, and that's how we can help. So we're going to be putting out information. It may come by email, maybe in our chats. But when we know who the names are, we want people to hammer them with phone calls. Okay. It's not hard to do. You make the phone call, you're going to get a staff member. Although if they get a lot of phone calls, maybe you'll get a whole bunch of people answering calls, but you get a staff person, you just say, what you support, what you want. They write the information down and tell you they're going to let the senator know. So, that's what the call to action is probably going to be quite a bit over the next bunch of weeks. And so pay attention, make that phone call. This is key for the elections. It has to get passed before November. These points are key. In our research in the voter rolls, we found evidence of non-citizens on our voter rolls. Now, we don't know for sure because the public cannot get Social Security numbers and things like that, but we definitely found evidence of possible non-citizens on the voter rolls. Did they vote? Some of them may have, I don't know which ones, and we didn't go in and look at names and say, hey, that one sounds foreign. We didn't do that. I didn't think that was right to do. But basically, the data we found, we did find a high number of January 1 date of birth. And January 1 is a placeholder date of birth for immigrants coming across when they seek asylum. They got Social Security numbers. Okay, so that's a key thing here. Many of them got Social Security numbers, millions of them did actually. And then with those Social Security numbers, they could very easily have gone to the motor vehicle department to get a license to drive and not known that they had to opt out of registering to vote and be on the voter rolls. One of the Freedom of Information Law projects I'm hoping to do is to see if we can get copies of letters written to the boards of elections from attorneys asking to remove their client from the voter rolls. So if these would be immigration attorneys. So if, there's an immigration attorney who's helping a client become a citizen, and one of the things apparently they do is they double check to make sure they're not on the voter rolls, because if they're not on the voter roll, or if they are on the voter rolls and they show a vote, it can prevent them from becoming citizens. So, that would be another avenue of determining, just some idea of who's on the voter roll. But the fact that from what we understand from various sources, that attorneys do regularly do this just proves the point. They are in the rolls, and it's a negative for a non-citizen who wants to become a citizen of the United States to suddenly have a vote. They can literally stop them from becoming the process of becoming a citizen. So there's some real negative consequences to the left's, let anybody get on the voter rolls, to me, it's like a free for all, but
Look, can I ask you a question?
There are, just to let you know, Kim, there's a couple of questions in the comments, and there's two people with their hands up.
Okay. So Sue, go ahead. I see you first.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Sue.
Hi. I attended a John Birch Society meeting last week, and I was kind of surprised that the John Birch Society's, their position on this bill is to vote no. And the reason has to do with children born to illegal immigrants. And that's, a big controversy now. And apparently, this bill would enable children of illegal immigrants to ultimately be eligible to vote. Did you hear anything?
I haven't heard that at all. I've been on numerous meetings. I can ask about that aspect, but I have not heard that at all.
Okay.
Not-
Tim, I
Yeah.
think we have to, CLEAT or, Election Integrity Network, they have to get those names. All right. Maybe Senator Lee could leak those names out.
Yeah.
Who they are. That's vital, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've read the legislation, Sue. So unless there's something I missed, I did not see anything about that.
Can I just say a perspective on that?
Yes.
That's actually the law governing whether or not those children are citizens is the issue. That has to be dealt with, because if the law says that they are citizens, then they actually do have the right to vote. That has to be reversed before you could deny them the right to vote. So I don't see how that's an issue with the Save America Act. But I do have experience a few years ago with the John Birch Society, who they themselves have an election integrity, I guess initiatives or teachings or information. They were not very open to any information that I presented or the people I knew that presented in the meetings. They were a little bit very conservative in what they accepted and what they actually spoke about. So they just might be ultra conservative, but I don't see that one thing has to do with another.
Well,
if
I think
they're citizens, then we have to allow them to vote.
I get the impression that with that particular group, they are diehard constitutionalists, and they're interpreting the Constitution, and their position is based on the wording in the Constitution that to be a citizen, if you're born in this country, there's a certain clause attached to that
Yeah.
that has to do with being under the rule of this government. And if your parents are immigrants, illegal immigrants from another country, they're really subject to the laws and rules of a different country, and therefore the child is subject to that other country's laws as well, not our laws. And so it's kind of an interpretation
I
there
believe,
because
Sue, I believe that's actually, and I could be wrong, but I believe there's actually a case that the Supreme Court, it's either winding its way to the Supreme Court or is in the Supreme Court.
I
Am
think the case,
I wrong about that, Stephen? There?
I think the case is on the docket for April 1st for oral argument.
Yeah, I thought so, right. So we may have a decision about that according to the Supreme Court about whether or not, an interpretation on the Constitution.
I agree with Sue's take on the citizenship clause in the 14th Amendment. And but I don't see how the Save America Act is going to reflect one way or another on whether those people, that are citizens by birthright,
Right.
are not citizens, is going to be impacted by the Save America Act one way or the other.
Well, the question will have to be if they're found to be citizens, then they'll have to prove they'll have to provide documentation.
Well,
So
now
and be a birth certificate.
they've been citizens, for a long-standing time. So as of now, they are citizens, and so I don't see how you could prevent them from registering to vote, and until the Supreme Court, adjudicates it. And so,
I mean, we can thank Reagan. We can thank Reagan for that. He's the one who allowed the Dreamers back in the day.
Well, that's another thing. Isn't there, the mass amnesty itself should have been challenged because there has to be some kind of loyalty or, oath. There's a whole procedure that's involved with a person from another country becoming an American. They have to change loyalties. They have to be willing to be loyal to the United States and its Constitution before they are actually permitted to be a citizen. So there's a lot of issues that need to be dealt with.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I chime in for a second? I could have sworn that the Supreme Court had issued a statement saying that the 14th Amendment only applied to slaves and not immigrants. I think that one has already been, dealt with already. But as far as everything else, like what the other lady and the other gentleman said, I think that's still up in the air as far as the amnesty and whatever else.
Yeah, I'm glad I remembered correctly. Yeah, I was pretty sure that the Supreme Court was going to take a look at that situation. And Sue will ask about it. We'll see, if there's something more that we're missing about it. DJ Alf, I see your hand next.
Okay. All right. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We can. Welcome.
All right. So the thing is that I did hear and I really love and respect the work that Project Civica does. I saw also Ben's, I actually was agreeing. I had a similar thought in the chat. Ben says, like, what about like finding out the senators who are vulnerable or, finding out the ones and what positions they have? And the thing is that really, there's swing states and things, and this is a federal decision here. I do think that there's value in talking to the senators here, but if maybe we could maybe make a guarantee and say, you know what, if if our organization might commit to saying, putting in like 20 or 50 hours of banking for for a consequence and say, like, I know, like, there was, I think in the House of Representatives, House of Representatives said that Texas has in-state showed the ID, so he supported it, even though he's a Democrat. So we talked to we say, you know what, if anybody who doesn't, any Democrat or in the swing states, we say, if you do not actually vote for the SAVE Act, we will guarantee that our organization will provide 100, 200 hours of phone banking for your opposition. You know what I mean?
Right. We can talk about that, certainly. We are New York based, and so but it all is connected, obviously, and change in New York is going to take federal legislation. We definitely will hop on actually, we already have, in the newsletter that went out today, we joined a coalition of national and state leaders signing a letter to Senator Thune, basically asking him to, bring this to the floor. So we are part of a whole coalition working on it, and where they need our help, kind of goes along with what I was saying about the call to action. Wherever we're needed, phone call wise, whatever pressure, that will come out. We will send emails out. We will put information out so that people can take action and make phone calls to the right people. And right now, it sounds like we need to hammer these senators that are holdouts on the traditional talking filibuster. Patrick?
Can I jump in just for 1 minute? It's Angela.
You can raise your hand and I can call on you next.
I don't know how to do it. I'm sorry.
All right, well, hold the thought.
Okay.
We'll let Patrick go first and then I'll come back to you.
Am I unmuted? Hang on 1 second.
Yes, you are, Patrick.
Okay, good. Well, I'm just going to comment on what Sue and Stephen were commenting on with the John Birch Society. Like Sue was saying, they think, their argument is, and I think it has some valid points, is that it somehow codifies this birthright citizenship, where only one of the requirements of this clause of the 14th Amendment that says, okay, if anybody born or naturalized within the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a citizen, basically. Those two requirements, okay, you're born here and you're subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Their argument is if you're born of two parents from a different country that are subject to the jurisdiction of that other country, you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So neither is the child that's born here. And they're saying with this birthright citizenship, people come here. There's quite a few Chinese citizens that have children here that now have dual citizenship. So, they obtain their driver's licenses and they're able to vote in our elections, which may be true. And like you were saying too, Kim, the SAVE Act may have some weaknesses, and that may actually be one of them.
Yes.
However, this is a step in the right direction. We have to take even little small gains that we can get. That's the way I've looked at it. That's one of the things. I don't know I guess Stephen and Sue made it pretty clear, but I thought that was, that point maybe needed to be hammered home. And then the other thing Danielle was saying about, younger people. I know this is a little off a little bit of a digression, but I always believed that at some point when you're 18 years old, you should be able to take an exam, almost like a citizenship exam, and basically give your consent to being governed by the United States. You don't have to take that test, but if you take that test and you consent to the government the way, it's founded in the Constitution, then you're a citizen. You don't have to become a citizen, and then you don't have to live here. You can make that choice. I know that sounds like a little draconian to some people, but you either want to, live in a constitutional republic or you don't. And it shouldn't be thrust upon you, and you shouldn't feel as though, somehow it's just, something that you were born into. You should actually have to make that choice at some point. So, that's where I wanted to leave it.
And maybe that's the solution for the dreamers too, right? Or possibly we're such in limbo is if they want to go through a process.
Right.
I think a lot of people, I know there's people out there that like, no way, they've got to go home. But on the other hand, I always feel like it's not their fault, But at the same time, if there was a process for them, there's a lot of things to be considered. That's for sure.
Yeah, but
let's see. Hold on. Angela, what did you want to say?
Well,
Steve, I'll see you afterward.
I was just going to pick up on what
exactly what I was going to say. And we did send a letter out, and it refers to the a book by Peter Schweitzer, The Invisible Coup, which you may want to write down. And it's saying more than 70% of newborns born in the U.S. territory of Saipan in the Pacific have People's Republic of China birth tourist parents who utilize the territory's 45-day visa-free visitation in order to have their children become American citizens. But the thing is, then they go back to China and they absorb or are taught the leanings of communism, and then they're eligible to come back here and vote when they're 18. And this is sort of like the foreign governments plotting to weaponize the
Yes.
immigration to take over from within by using our election system.
Right,
It's
and I think that's another question, legal question, that goes along with what we've been talking about with that case in before the Supreme Court. Because that isn't just where you're Saipan, it's also in California.
Yes.
That it's
Yes.
happening. Actually, it happens all over, to be honest with you.
a
But
game,
California was in the
national
news
game,
more recently.
right?
Yeah,
What I was,
That's sad.
Angela just stated what I was trying to say earlier, that kind of follows up on what Patrick was talking about. And
Yeah.
she stated it way more thoroughly and way more eloquently than I would. So thank you for that. But it's national, at the end of the day, it's a national security concern.
yes.
So if you have foreigners, okay, that come here on some kind of short-term visa just to birth children and then
Right.
go back to their countries, and that child has no ties whatsoever to the United States, is not even attempting to assimilate, has no idea of American values, has no idea of American principles, and lives their entire life in a foreign country, but they're an American citizen.
Right.
There's something extremely wrong with that.
It's also a transfer of wealth, if you really think about it,
Quinn, could
because
you raise your hand, please?
I don't even know where the button is. That's
All
why I
right,
was
well,
trying to find it.
All right, that's fine. Just hold on. There's somebody with their hand raised. I'll get to you afterwards. I think that's you, Danielle.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I did a chat GPT for who is holding out on the procedural change or to move the bill forward. And I put the names in the chat. They're from various sources, so I didn't cite the sources, and it's not one list. It's basically the senators making comments to to media and the public about their reservations on why they're not going to sign it, but it's not one concise list together. So I just put those names. I would investigate a little bit more, but it seems like those people are refusing to sign. So for various reasons, including the talking filibuster, the
Right.
strategy.
And I see in the chat, somebody asked about how many votes it would need to pass, and the answer is 51. So it's a way around cloture, basically, is if we use the talking filibuster or the talking, that whole debate, then once the Dems are done, if the Republicans can hold it together, then it would be 51 to pass, not 60. Yes, Quentin, you found the
Oh,
hand,
okay.
so that's good.
Yeah,
There
I
you
found the
go.
button. Thank you. Well, I'm gonna just move it along because our debt, now that they've been pointing out all this fraud and all these different social services and NGOs. How much of our national debt is that fraud? Because if we had 37 trillion, how much of that is fraud?
A lot of it, Quentin. I believe a lot of it, if not all of it.
Trump said that if they stop the fraud, it'll pay our national debt. That's what he said in the State of the Union.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, all of us, have had instinctively known there's a lot out there. And I think we're seeing more and more of it, between Minnesota and Maine and California and New York. I mean, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm really glad that we have JD Vance and what's his name? Who's the Secretary of the Treasury? Scott Bissett working on it. I think it's a great team working on that. Steve.
Yeah, okay.
Kim
So I'm
also-
just looking at
Hold on, Daniel. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm just looking at the list Danielle put up, and the only new ones are John Curtis and Daines. The other ones, McConnell, Tillis, Mikowski, they were never on board. All right. So that's why we only ended up with 51 last week when there were 2 weeks ago, I guess Friday, when they voted on it. So those are the only two new ones that are on the list. Steve
Right.
Daines from Montana, and John Curtis. And McConnell, just a little side note, McConnell's the one that brought in the zombie filibuster
He is.
when he was speaking. When he was speaker.
Oh,
Yeah.
how appropriate.
How appropriate, exactly.
And he was the one, he's also the chairman, and he wouldn't allow it out of committee last, was it Monday or Tuesday? He said he wasn't going to let it come out of committee.
SAVE Act, but remember, it's different. It's the SAVE
Right.
Act, but he's got it holding in committee. Save America does not have to go into committee. Now,
I know.
Thune can do that. He can put it into committee, but that's what we're trying to prevent him to do. He needs to bring it to the floor and just keep moving forward. So that'll be the page engineer emails. Be willing to make phone calls. Usually when we send out a call to action with the information, we'll give you a script, we'll give you the phone numbers. And right now the call to action is Thune, to call him and tell him to, bring the Save America Act to the floor, basically. Yes, Danielle, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, I just want to say, I believe Benny asked what in the bill, and I know I read it initially, in the bill, the Save America Act, what are the consequences, or what's the recourse for non-compliance or not implementing the?
I don't remember either.
I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah. Ask ChatGPT. Maybe it'll tell us really quick.
I think if I remember,
maybe we could ask Brock. Yes.
I think I remember with the SAVE Act, the original SAVE Act. I think, and it could be wrong, but it was that they would hold HAVA money.
I want to say it would, that's a good guess that it has to, they're holding HAVA money. Yeah, exactly. Right. Quentin.
Yeah, I'm really concerned that even with a mass majority of the population in favor of the SAVE Act, you still have Democrats really not in support of that, but then making themselves look like hypocrite when they want IDs to attend their own function. And if anybody saw the State of the Union last night, Trump really, put them on the spot. And they really, I really want to know, how does anybody feel? Is it really going to hurt them in the midterms for 2028 or what? I just curious on everybody's feedback.
If I can introduce Quentin, okay? Quentin is running for the 20th Senate District in Brooklyn. Okay, he's the candidate running. So that's going to be a great campaign thing, Quentin. That's going to be great for the campaign. Let the Democrats hang themselves, all right? We're going to be using that in your race. So,
well, the same thing was done. There's a lot of hypocritical things happening. Same thing with defunding the police, but everybody has security guards. They're against everybody else having guns. So there's a lot of hypocrisy in the system, and we just have to point it out and show people clearly that these people are not advocating for our best interests, basically. So
100%.
That's all we can do.
I just hope the country is wise enough.
Hopefully people will start seeing.
Yeah, because I mean, the country is going down because I can't understand why half or majority of the population think in the ways that we all are against. Like, some of this stuff is a no-brainer. Like, I don't get it.
If you're existing in your life and you aren't paying attention, and all you're catching about the news is maybe what you're listening to on the radio in your car, or you know what I mean? You're catching snatches from the mainstream media and you're getting their interpretation in a minute or 2 minutes. I mean, and then that's really that's
or a celebrity. Or a celebrity,
right? You're catching it from a celebrity. Good point there. So until it hits you in the face because of something that happens to you personally, and then you suddenly realize the hypocrisy out there and the problems out there. And I think in New York City, I think that's happening already to some extent. It seems like a lot of people have buyer's remorse. They thought they were going to get
He's going to be a one-term mayor. You're gonna
Yeah,
get
I mean,
one-time
they thought
man.
everything was going to be free, and here we are. Second snowstorm, and we can't even manage to get the city dug out. So, let alone some of the other issues. But and the whole thing with voter ID, and the mayor was just perfect. Just like such, you needed two IDs to, two picture IDs just to
And
even
your social for the
snow
shovel the snow. You
to
needed two
shovel the
IDs and a
snow.
social.
And then they had nobody sign up. That was even better, like no one even bothered to sign up. So
Well,
kind
it
of
was only, to be fair, it was only one station that had about 35 people sign up. Everybody else was zero.
zero. Yep, 100%. Yep. Interesting. All right. Is there any other things that people want to talk about? I don't know, Patrick, if you want to talk about your visit to the find out about the machines in Suffolk County, if you're at all want to mention that. One of the initiatives that we've been working on is to try to stop the Express Vote Excel machine. It's the ESNS Excel machine, but what it does is it's a touch screen, like ATM style voting machine, where your vote after you're done gets encoded in a barcode and the machine reads the barcode. And Monroe County bought them, and we were trying to stop it in Suffolk, and we're actually still trying. We've got some ideas there, but Suffolk did buy them, and they just had a test them out kind of a event, and Patrick was going. So Patrick, what was your thoughts and how did it go?
Well, it went pretty well. The Board of Elections employees were pretty friendly. There was one supervisor there that was a little standoffish, but that's okay. Had some good conversations. One of the things that was a concern of mine was, the fact that, just understanding how it works, and then understanding that you can make selections on like an ATM style screen for whatever office people are running for. So you're electing these people, you're casting a vote, and then you press a button, it goes into the machine, comes back with the names of the people that you voted for printed on this card, basically. And then at the top of that card is the barcode that says, basically to the machine, okay, these are your selections. Now, if the machine's going to read barcode, and one of the things Royal Reynolds was pretty good at emphasizing was people can't read barcode. I can't read barcode. So how do I know that what the machine is reading is actually the selections I made on the screen? So one of the employees demonstrated to me. She gave me the my ballot back with the names printed on it and the barcode. She put another one of these blank cards in the Express Vote Excel. She made selections, and then she she went through the procedure where the machine prints in text my selections, and also had at the top of that card has the barcode. She took that out. She let me put my card back in, and the machine read my barcode correctly again. So in other words, she basically verified that the barcode at the top was correct. And it kind of it kind of made me doubt that a little less. But another thing that was a concern is, okay, and then Sue Hansen had brought this up, was, once you hit submit, after that, it's still uncertain as to how these votes are tallied by the source code. And I know that's that's hard to verify, and it's even hard to articulate. But I still believe that that's really one of the big concerns, because you can change an election basically from just changing the votes in a couple election districts or a couple polling places, and you don't have to make these broad swaths of flipping votes
Right.
throughout the throughout the state. Let's say it's a state election for governor. So that's the concern, is you can just have a few tallies that are are somehow skewed that change the results of an election. And that's one of the things I was trying to emphasize to some of the employees. And I have to say, I don't think the supervisor was thrilled with it, but I do think, we kind of made a little bit of an impression with some of the employees. One of the things I will say is if you go about doing this stuff, you don't want to go in there immediately being adversarial, because these employees are doing their job. They basically have the sales pitch of ES&S memorized with these machines. And, like some people come in and, I understand people are angry because they have legitimate doubts and concerns, but, we can't, when we go in there, we can't go in there, broad-shouldered and ready to throw down, because right away they get defensive. We're not going to cover any ground at that point, and so we have to think a little bit more strategically and keep ourselves composed and have, try to articulate ourselves the best we can and have an intelligent discussions with these people and start to make our impressions that way. So I think it went pretty well. And there were also two people that work as poll inspectors. They were actually election coordinators at a polling site. And we had, Sue and I had spoke to them, and we had a few disagreements. But she's saying, one of the coordinators is saying to me, "You have to trust." And I said, "No, you have to verify. This isn't a system built on trust. It's built on a system where we, the people, have to verify 100%."
Patrick,
Yeah, no,
I got a
that's
quick
one of the
question.
biggest problems with the machines. Hold on, Steve, 1 second.
Yeah.
Is that in the past there have been problems with the barcodes.
Yes.
With the machine. So it really has to come down to who's programming the barcode, and then what the machine is reading, and it's a black box. There's no way to know, and it actually did occur in several instances across the country where the barcodes were incorrect.
And truth be told, that's just one, that's one instance where I said, okay, the barcode was read correctly. That doesn't mean that's true in 1,000, 1,000 iterations of that. But sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, Patrick, I went a month ago, okay, with Comac, and I went and I had a conversation with them also. And there was 3 questions that they couldn't answer for me. They were very foggy on it. One was, are the machines going to be certified, and accuracy test and test going to be done after it comes from the manufacturer and gets delivered to Suffolk County? Is that still going to be done? They didn't have an answer for me. And the woman that was there when I was there, she was the lead trainer for the machines. And then I also asked her, I mentioned about the barcode, but then I also asked them what their plan was if, in fact, we know there's going to be long lines. And what is their plan because we all know the law, you have to, over 30 minutes, the Board of Elections is supposed to actually either bring more manpower in and or more equipment in. So I asked her, and she said, "Oh, well, I don't know. I'm assuming they have a plan." So that was the second one. And she didn't have an answer for me on that one either. And then my other question is we talk about spoiled ballots all the time. Okay. So people that aren't aware, there's 3 opportunities. If you go in there right now and you mark your ballot and you mess it up, you can go get another one and they'll print out another one for you, and you get 3 options at that. My question to them is, I says, what if somebody's sitting there and they already hit the submit button and it prints it out and they say, that's the wrong one. That's not what I want. What is the procedure in place? She says, "Oh, we're going to have a lot of people around. I'll take care of it." And I said, "Well, that's fine." I says, "But what is the procedure? What are you going to do if somebody says, no, this is not who I voted for, or I made a mistake personally when I did it. This is not what I want my vote to be." And they didn't have an answer for me for that either.
Yeah. There's circumstances where even we may not foresee right now that are going to create problems. And that's funny that you brought that up too, because one of the things, one of the ladies I was speaking to said, well, we needed to upgrade the machines we had. We usually upgrade the machines every 10 years. And the machines, the optical scanners we had were like I want to say she said about 15 years old. But anyway, I said, well, then why didn't you just buy new optical scanners? Why did you have to buy these machines? You know, and she was like, oh, you know, I don't make that.
Because it was $32 million instead of
Yeah,
$15 million.
exactly.
That's why.
Right, it would have been a lot better for taxpayers. Okay, so there's a couple questions. Quentin?
Yeah, basically I just wanted to springboard off of what the brother said about the voting machines. To be honest, I don't trust none of them electronically, especially if they can get hooked up to the internet. We just need to bring it back to the paper ballot, because the fraud that could be generated from electronic voting machines. I recently, a while, well, not recently, but a while back, that voting situation that happened where Fox News got sued or whatever the case may be, and they had lost that case. Well, anyway, I went down the rabbit hole just a little bit further,
That's
and
the Dominion machines you're talking about.
right, and they had to pay out that money for that lawsuit when they claimed that the register was not what it is. But anyway, to make a long story short, the way that the machines are rigged, right? The demo that they showed the brother, you know, is one thing. But then when it comes time to the election, there's another setting that they could put the machines to that I don't trust, because you could manipulate a turnout or whatever the case may be and put certain voters from one candidate to another candidate, and all the information changes electronically. That's why when the brother said about the barcode or whatever the case may be, and I was like, because look at the traffic it took for you to put in your information for who you voted for, get your card out with a barcode, then have it retranslated just to make sure you voted for everybody you voted for. And that could be switched, because right
Well,
now when they want to give you the demo just to sell the product, of course they're going to show you, the best feature and how it works or whatever the case may be. But then when it comes time for the election, those machines could have another setting which could basically work in the favor of one particular candidate over another. That's why I don't trust
and
electronic voting
and the
machines.
problem is that it's proprietary technology. So and once if it was a transparent technology where other people, the people can observe and check and make sure that everything's in order. But right now we're subject to the technicians of the voting machine. So I'm sure every single one of those things has the potential of having covert actions behind the scenes, unless we could check it. And that's why we're for transparency in all aspects of the election, and we're fighting for transparency in every single area of an election, the administration of elections. There should be nothing that we cannot check. And like Patrick said, we must verify. Kim, did you want to say
Yeah, I
anything?
just want to say one thing, along the whole process of elections, if you will, from the very beginning, logic and accuracy tests, all the way even before that, registration, there are multiple spots where there are weak points that are vulnerable to all sorts of hacking, other issues. So that's the problem, is all these multiple points of entry of possibilities. If some of you follow Art Zark, he just put out a Substack talking about two files that he got from Dr. Walter Daugherty, he's a elections expert out of Texas, and he basically it's a primary election, and they sent the files to the committee chairs, some of the party leadership, and then went in and kind of like cleaned up afterwards. So if you read that article, what he's saying is the only reason he was able to catch the insertion of fake registrations is because they sent this file to party leadership and he got a hold of it and looked at it. And then they went back in on the poll pads and cleaned it up. So it's a very, I don't know, if somebody has that link, you can put it in the chat. So there's multiple places along the whole process that needs to be fixed and shored up. And, you know, trust in the machines is just one part of the whole thing. So it's, you know, even just chain of custody once the ballots, you know, New York, had the gold standard, which is hand marked paper ballots. And now they're trying to bring in these machines, which is a shame because it was one of the things that New York did really well is that we had paper that you filled in and you can tell what the intent of the voter was just by looking at that paper. Now, there are other aspects of New York that, you know, needs work, but that was one of the positives that we used the gold standard. And a summary card that doesn't give you, you know, just lists selections, but doesn't show you what the voter had to consider, you know, does not, I think, check the box for voter verifiable ballots, which is a requirement under HAVA, by the way, federal legislation. DJ Elf?
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just a couple things. First of all, like I said before, I'm a big fan of this group. And the thing is that unfortunately, though, I have to tell you that DSA is whooping our ass, especially when it comes to teaching our children. Our children need Project Civica because honestly, the schools are not giving our kids a political education. I'd like to see Project Civica try to open up maybe campus chapters. I don't know if you heard of NIPERG, but they are literally a Democrat machine, and a lot of them have their space paid for by student activity funds. They have offices inside these schools. I'd like to see maybe Project Civica maybe run a summer camp or a project to compete with DSA. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, I know a lot of you guys are fans of Turning Point USA. Can anybody tell me what they've gotten done in New York? Look, maybe they're doing great in the Midwest, but here in New York, they're not doing it. And young Republicans, right? They're a lot of times trading access for sovereignty, and they're not really in county committee. So I'd like to see this group specifically maybe do like a college conference political bowl. You guys have like very interesting information. I think at the last meeting, someone said like 86,000 people are registered both in New York and New Jersey. And also, I know you guys are publishing that report. So you guys can say, you know what, this political test, right, that we're going to ask, we're going to give you the answers. It's directly from this report. So Democrat, Republican, this is not a partisan issue. This is understanding our democracy. And I think Project Civica should start taking a lead as in terms of educating our children, because honestly, if not, DSA is whooping our asses. And I'm tired of waiting around for Turning Point USA to do something. I think the quality of what's being presented here is world class, and I want to see you guys do it. So that's just what I have to say. Thank you. And I'd love to be part of that, running that program if you guys do it.
DJ,
Well,
we have lots of
there's already a teacher suspended for trying to bring in a TP USA to this school, and they suspended the teacher in New York.
Yeah, I don't care
And
about that. I'm
upstate,
sorry,
yeah.
I don't care about
That's
that.
an
I'm not
upstate.
getting it done.
Yeah, I have to jump right now, but Danielle and Steve and some other people are on here, so you guys can continue the conversation. But I wanted to say that upstate there is quite a strong high school. The college aspect I think needs a lot of work. I agree with you with Turning Point Action, DJ. But the high school effort, I'm very familiar with their efforts, and they're doing pretty phenomenal stuff at the high school level. But they're obviously running into pushback, as Angela just pointed out with that teacher. But anyways, we have lots of dreams and goals long term, and you're on the right track. I think we'd like to do a lot more. It's you know, it's a matter of people, you know, getting people involved and helping run those kind of programs, and finances, to be honest with you, you know, getting people to help fund it. So if it's something you want to help us work on, we certainly can reach out to you separately from this call, and you know, we can definitely work on that aspect. But I'm going to say goodnight and see you all next week, and feel free to continue on the call and keep the conversation going.
Great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
good
Bye,
night.
Kim. Thanks so much. Steve,
Yeah,
could I, my internet is really wonky. I'm gonna make, as soon as Kim leaves, I'm gonna make you co-host. Is that okay?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Yes.
just because I got knocked off twice
Better not
already.
leave.
Okay. All right. I just want to say something about the Save America Act. It's like Kim mentioned before, there's so many problems that we have in this election system. that we've known since it was the SAVE Act, that didn't cover everything. There's so many issues, that so many different components to this whole thing. At least this is something that we're moving the ball forward. All right. So I want really people, to think about that, even though we know there's a million other problems. So that's
Yeah,
just what I wanted
thank
to say
you.
about that.
Absolutely. And Quentin,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the way the Democrats built their whole apparatus, whatever, has really been exposed when, USAID, numbers came out, because what it seemed like they set up a whole bunch of not-for-profits, to help administer their craziness or whatever, and funnel money back through kickbacks to candidates, whether they're, congressmen or senators or whatever the case may be. Not saying that we need to be underhanded like that, but we can take more constructive measures in building up the same kind of apparatus without all kinds of shenanigans to really, push forward, the America First agenda. I don't really think it'll be that difficult. All I really think is that, we really just need to come together and lay it all out and just do what we need to do to make it happen, because the Democrats don't have no problem doing what they need to do to make things happen. So we shouldn't be, having those kind of problems either. That's all I wanted to sit there and chime in about.
oh, thank you. Well, I 100% agree with you in one regard. The left, the radical side, has a phenomenal way of organization and unlimited funding. So of course they seem to get a lot of things done. However, there are things that they do that we can actually try to also do. I believe that Project Civica is organizing, we're collaborating, we're trying to create different strong points that'll move things ahead. We are collaborating on legislation. We're working on precinct strategy. We work on political strategy. We work on election integrity. We have our research team. So we're trying to tie all this information together. I think we have weaknesses in because we are a volunteer organization and we don't have funding in, consistent marketing, PR, like I've been asking that we have volunteers, but we really need a lot of volunteers on social media. That's where we get the message out. We do have a very good structure, but there are more consistently, because we have volunteers that are trained and do help with that, but we need consistent help with social media. So we're putting out calls. So to tell you the truth, if you know volunteers and we can coordinate them. We just need to put them into positions where we could trust that they're going to get that done so that other people can do something else. So we're organizing. It's just, of course, and there are other groups also that are doing it, and we're connecting with them, but we just don't have the funding, and we need more people to get involved. So
No,
2026.
what I mean is, like, the Democrats, they got academia, they got Hollywood, you know.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. Cause like on the Republican end, we can't really say we have any big apparatuses like that, cause
Well,
when
we
I when
do. Just think about it this way. We we understand America. We're Americans. Let's just keep it American. America has so much to offer. We just have to keep that message out and let people know that America is safe. It's great. It has potential, and if we just move forward with with that message, that we want truth, we want the people to flourish. These things are what it's in our nature. We know what is right. It'll resonate with people because everyone knows what's right. They know that things are not are off, and that message will draw people, and they'll go there. And you'll see. You're gonna,
No, I know we
yeah,
gonna make a headway. It's just gonna be a slow and steady race. I know we gonna
exactly.
make it eventually. But
Yeah.
it's just that the opposition just has so much more going in their category. It feels like a one-handed fight. You fight with one hand and they fighting with two.
It's like David and Goliath. We got it. Let me hear Camille. Hi, Camille. How are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hi, Danielle. Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to go a little off topic and talk about county committeemen for a second. I
Great.
was working with Patrick last year and got bummed out I didn't get selected as county committee, but I recently reached out to Danny Mayo and he gave me the PDF of everyone who made it as of June 25. And I remember I did this back 2 years ago. I counted how many county committee was in each borough. And I was just wondering because they're the ones that usually give, the chairman a lot of power in each borough. I had counted this
You're
was
talking
in
about Queens. Queens?
the 5 boroughs. It was a PDF that I had received.
Oh,
So
good.
I got another link recently, and they did the breakdown by borough. I know. So last time when I did the count, like 2 years ago, like it said that Manhattan had 616, Bronx had 1086, Brooklyn had 1164, Queens had 814, and Staten Island had 276. Now I didn't get a chance to do the count for the new 2025 link that I seen. I was just wondering if we could, is there any way to find out if these people have they voted? Like when you guys
Yes.
do the data stuff, like the data team,
Yes,
is
Steve
there any?
is gonna jump
Yeah.
in, but yes, there is a
All right, Camille, how you doing, Camille?
Hi.
I just
Hi.
want to remind you, this is live stream. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, this is like, yeah. So, the issue with it is cross-referencing, all right, from the voter rolls over to how many county committeemen voted. All right. My argument, obviously, and I think you know what it is that the county committeemen aren't involved because they're not contacted by the county chairs. All right. I mean, I've been going through this for a while now. And, I don't understand why the county chairs take Brooklyn for argument's sake. You got 1,000 committeemen listed in Brooklyn.
right.
All right. And, my argument to their chair has been that he should be reaching out, and he said he's going to do it, because they need help getting signatures and things of that nature, that he needs to send an email out to all of them and tell them we need help. And if you take take the situation in Queens, we have the situation in Queens, and Wilson knows that well.
Yeah,
and Manhattan
too.
is terrible. Manhattan's
Right.
terrible. When was the last time a committeeman got an email from their district leader or from the county chair? From Casanatidi. They don't get it. So that's the problem. That's where the problem exists. Is the county chairs, and that's a shame because even though we have so many vacant spots, all right, so many vacant spots, like in Brooklyn, you look at, they got I think 1,800 vacant spots. They got 1,000 actual committeemen that are listed as committeemen. However, they're not even communicated to. And
I just feel like New York City could be a special project because it's New York City and we have the names and address. I just want to know.
Well, unless you get support from, the people who in there.
Right.
People.
Because I think a lot of these people are not a lot of these people are not. Yeah.
What she wants to see is if they're active voters to see it, right? So to check that, which I think that's not difficult to check.
Well, as long as we have it on an Excel sheet, and John could then cross-reference the two sheets. All right. Okay. I mean, he probably can, but you have the one from 2 years ago, correct? That's maybe I think Wells
2025.
You have 2025. Yeah, if it's in an Excel, well, not even an Excel file. If you just send it over to me, and I'll check with John our data guy to see if he could cross-reference the two files.
Okay, and I got the page limits of the Manhattan and, all the Republicans, and I got the page numbers. I just wanted to know. I really don't think, I think a lot of these people don't even exist.
Oh, no, they just put names in there and when they use them as proxy votes.
Right.
That's how the deal works. Right? Well,
Okay, I'll send that over.
Yeah, that's how it works. It's unfortunate. I mean,
Wilson.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. Thanks, sir. I think the big thing is the county committee needs to be more actively engaged. Like quite often, I think we're running into the problem is we're just waiting for someone at the top to give us instructions. And really it needs to come from the bottom up in terms of where the instructions are coming from, because like there's no incentive, unfortunately, for them to do anything at this point. At least that's how I feel personally. So usually what I do is like I actively go out and find issues, what's going on, to know what's going on with the state assembly, looking at what's going on with the second reading, third reading, because these are the bills that are be coming up. Like there's no notification from anybody. So if we're gonna just sit here and wait for them at the top to do something, you're just gonna sit there and waiting forever.
Right.
Like it's just no point. And
that's why
kind of committee man too. So I mean, I'm one of the kind of
well,
committee. So
well, that's why we're encouraging people to get involved so that.
Right, exactly. So this is why this Project Civica is great, because I'm trying, like it helps to be very encouraging, like to know that there are other people who have the same exact, like in terms of like thought process where like, we need to get involved. We need to have people like just really ready to run. And so, like that's and I can, I saw that you said there was 800. There were quite a few primaries in this past last year for the county committee. So we only actually have less than 700 officially seated county committee out of 2,150 seats or something like that. So
right. That count could have changed in 2 years. So I got the new link so I can count per assembly district. I just want to know, we don't know each other. I'm not even a committee man. I got kicked off. I didn't even get it. My mom got kicked
you
off
ran in primary. It's a good thing.
No, I didn't win at all.
Too, so.
Right.
My mother is.
My mother got kicked off.
Even if you're not officially seated as a county committee, as
Mm-hmm.
long as you're actively out there, that's what matters. And you're actively out there because the title itself doesn't really matter. In the sense it does, because you have the power to vote for the county chair. So that's a good thing. And you have the way influence to, like try to influence the party in an official capacity. But if you don't win, you can still have influence, right? And so that's where, you just have to continue to, just grow as a leader to help help your community out. And then next year, people seeing, because 2027, we're always up for re-election every 2 years. Next year, you can run again and say, look, I've been doing these things for county committee, or I've been trying to do this thing to build the party up. I don't know. I don't see whether other people are doing it. So I want you to sign my petition. We need a more active, leadership within our own election district.
Right now.
Yeah. So don't get bummed out that you didn't get it.
It's not about the bummed out. It's about other people knowing what I was doing, and then they're deflated.
I'm not.
You know what I'm going to do?
If it's not this year, it's going to be next year. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I'm going to officially end the meeting so we could stop the live stream. And then we can continue the conversation. Okay. So thank you, everybody out in YouTube world. Stephen?
I just hope I left a good word of encouragement at the end. That's all.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you.
I have to stop the live